The sun hadn't fully risen yet. A soft dampness lingered in the air, mixed with the distant songs of birds. In Haram's room, a gentle light was spreading, the kind of soft glow that makes everything look like a dream. Small pictures on the wall, a cozy blanket on the bed, and under one pillow, half of an unfinished book. "Wake up, little one." The door swung open. It was Saad, Haram's youngest brother. Mischief on his face, a jug in his hand, and excitement in his voice. "Saad, even the sun's still asleep. Why are you shouting?" Haram mumbled, hiding her face under the pillow. Saad laughed. "The sun may be sleeping, but your surprise is awake." Then Rayhan walked in, the older brother, calm but with warmth in his eyes. "Just get ready. We're going somewhere. No questions, just come." Haram rolled her eyes. "You two never stop with your pranks." Rayhan smiled. "Yet you still trust us, don't you?" A little while later, the three of them were in the car driving toward the beach. Saad was humming songs the whole way, and Haram had her hand out the window, feeling the breeze brush her fingers. Sunlight danced across her face, as if life was opening a brand new page just for her. When the car stopped, there it was, the sea. The sound of waves, the scent of sand, and the taste of salt in the air. "This is your surprise," Rayhan announced. "A whole day here. No calls, no books, just us three." Saad immediately kicked off his shoes, scooped up a handful of sand, and tossed it into the air. "Wow, I'm building a castle." Haram laughed, a free, pure, childlike laugh. She wandered a little farther, barefoot on the sand, walking with the wind. And there, not too far away, she saw a boy sitting alone. An open notebook lay before him, a pen between his fingers, his eyes fixed on the ocean. He was writing, slowly, softly, as if his words were floating on the breeze. His hair tousled by the wind, and his face calm, yet carrying a quiet depth. Haram stopped for a moment. Her heart whispered gently, "Who is he? And why does it feel like I've seen him before?" Then Saad's voice broke the moment. "Haram, look, I built a castle." The instant faded, but his face stayed in her mind. By evening, the day was filled with laughter, stories, and the rhythm of the waves. But when night came, that boy's image lingered, like the echo of the sea in her heart. Days later, the first day of university, new books, new faces, new beginnings. Haram entered her class, greeted her friends, and found a seat. Then her eyes fell on the first row. The same notebook, the same hair, the same silence, the same boy Daniyal. For a moment, time stood still. And that's when the story began to breathe. Soft whispers filled the classroom. New students were slowly finding their seats. The teacher hadn't arrived yet, but curiosity shimmered on every face. Haram placed her notes on the desk and said to her friend Anam with a laugh, "Look at this, first class of the semester and I'm still half asleep." Anam grinned. "Keep showing that attitude, and watch. The professor will make the whole class stand up." Haram chuckled, nodding, but as she glanced forward, the first row near the window, There he was, a boy with an open notebook, the same calm handwriting, and eyes that looked like they were carved from the depth of the sea. Daniyal. For a moment, her heart skipped a beat. That same face, that same quietness she had seen on the beach. Only this time he was closer. Close enough for her heart to whisper, "Is it really him? Or just the memory the wind brought back?" Suddenly the door opened. The professor walked in, and silence swept over the class. Daniyal closed his notebook and bowed his head slightly. There was a peace in his eyes, untouched by all the surrounding chatter. When class ended, students began filing out. Haram gathered her books, but just then her file slipped from her hands. Paper scattered everywhere. "Here, let me help." The voice was soft, calm, almost like the breeze speaking. She looked up. It was Daniyal, holding one of her papers. Haram hesitated. "Thank you. You were at the beach a few days ago, weren't you?" Daniyal asked with a faint smile. Surprise flickered across Haram's face. "Yes, you were there too, right?" "Yeah. I was just there to write. But when your brothers started making noise, it felt like life had suddenly entered the air." The moment stood still. No silence, no hesitation. Just two strangers connected by a shared breeze of recognition. "Do you write a lot?" Haram asked. Daniyal looked toward the sky and replied softly, "I write the things that can't be spoken." Then he walked away. Haram stood there for a while, papers in hand, heart echoing with those quiet words that had gone straight through her. That evening, at home, Saad was as loud as ever. "Uppy, why so quiet today? You look like there's a storm written all over your face." Haram laughed. "Nothing. It's just the wind felt a bit different today." Rayhan's voice came from behind, calm but firm. "That's what winds do, little one. They change people. Be careful." Haram said nothing, but her heart whispered, "It's not the wind that's changing me. It's someone else." Days slowly began to fall back into rhythm. University life had become both new and familiar for Haram. The laughter of friends, the chatter echoing through the halls, and the soft whispers during lectures, all blending into the music of life. Yet among all those faces, there was one that remained silent. And perhaps it was that very silence that had found a home in her heart. Daniyal. He didn't speak much, but when he did, the air seemed to pause. There was calmness in his words, and a quiet sadness in his eyes that seemed to tell a story of its own. It was noon. Class had ended, but Haram hadn't closed her notebook yet. She stood by the window, watching the lawn below, where a few students were sitting and laughing. Among them, under a tree, Daniyal sat, writing. Haram smiled faintly to herself. He's always writing something, as if the world lives on his pages. Behind her, Anim's voice called out, "What are you looking at?" "Nothing." Haram turned quickly. Just the wind felt different from that side. Anim raised an eyebrow. "The wind or that boy?" Haram laughed. "You turn everything into love." Anim smirked. "Still, your face looks different. Something's definitely there." To escape the teasing, Haram grabbed her notebook and walked down to the lawn. As she passed by Daniyal, she wanted to glance at what he was writing, but courage failed her. Just then a soft breeze blew, and a sheet of paper drifted from his notebook. Haram quickly picked it up. There were a few words written, small but deep. Some faces aren't revealed by time, the wind shows them. She turned the page over and looked at Daniyal. He smiled. Thanks, that was mine. Do you write poetry? She asked. No, he replied softly. I just write what the heart refuses to say. Haram smiled lightly. So you're an expert at hiding your feelings? Daniyal looked up at the sky. Not hiding, he said, protecting. For a few moments, they both fell silent. The leaves rustled with the wind, and somewhere in the distance, the class bell rang. Time moved, but their hearts stood still. Over the next few days, their meetings became almost routine. Sometimes outside the cafe, sometimes near the library, sometimes in quiet talks about the sea. Do you like the ocean? Daniyal asked one day. Yes, very much. Why? Because it has both noise and peace. Daniyal nodded slowly. Just like the heart. The words slipped straight into Haram's soul. A quiet warmth spread through her. Perhaps this was the first time silence began to mean something. One evening, as the sun was setting, Daniyal pointed toward the sea. Sometimes I feel like the ocean listens to everyone. Some people say everything, without saying a word. Haram looked up at the sky. And some people hear everything, yet say nothing. Daniyal turned to her. Yes, maybe you're one of them. For the first time, Haram looked directly into his eyes. A single moment that spoke more than 1,000 words. No promises, no confessions. Just a feeling. As if the wind itself had changed color. That night, Haram sat in her room. Saad was making noise as usual. Rayhan was reading the newspaper. But Haram was quiet, writing in her notebook. Some names are written in the silence of the heart, and they never fade away. The day was fading, and the sun painted soft shades of orange across the sea. The breeze carried a cool whisper, and footprints vanished one by one along the shore. Haram walked barefoot, sandals in hand, slowly nearing the water. A little farther away, Daniyal sat, holding that same small diary that always stirred her curiosity. Do you come here every day? Haram asked with a gentle smile. Still gazing at the water, Daniyal replied, Yes, there's peace in the noise here. Is that poetry or just an excuse? Maybe both. They both laughed. Then came a comfortable silence. Only the sound of the waves and the distant echo of children's laughter. Haram's phone rang. It was Rayhan. Where are you? Mom's asking, dinner's getting cold. I'm coming, just 5 minutes. She hung up and looked at Daniyal. My brothers are crazy. If they don't argue at least once a day, they can't sleep. Daniyal smiled faintly. How many brothers do you have? 2. Rayhan and Saad. Rayhan's the eldest, sensible only by title. And Saad, he's a hurricane of mischief. Daniyal chuckled softly for the first time. Then your house must be full of noise. Yes, but I like it. When everyone talks, it feels like life. For a brief moment, sadness flickered in Daniyal's eyes. My house doesn't have noise anymore. Haram looked at him curiously, but he stayed quiet. Then he said softly, some sounds stay only inside the heart, with no one left to listen. The words struck something deep within her. For the first time, Haram realized Daniyal's silence wasn't just peace. It carried secrets and emptiness. Evening descended, and they both walked back from the shore. When Haram opened the door to her house, Saad called out from behind, "The drama queen's back." Without looking up from his newspaper, Rayhan added, "Get ready, the noise has arrived." You both wait for me just to tease me, don't you? Haram pouted. Because it's too easy, Saad laughed. Rayhan said gently, "Come on now, dinner's gone cold." Haram sat with them, but her mind was elsewhere. Daniyal's words, his eyes, that quiet breeze, all echoed in her thoughts. Late that night, she sat on the balcony. Stars glimmered in the sky, streetlights glowed below. From her brother's room came bursts of laughter. And amidst that laughter, Haram realized, some silences are so deep. They make more noise than words ever could. The next day, Daniyal was absent from university. And the next day too. Haram searched everywhere. The library, the cafe, the seaside. But he was nowhere. Every empty bench seemed to ask her, why isn't he here today? On the third day, after class, she passed by the lawn. Under the same tree lay that familiar diary, its pages fluttering in the wind. She bent down and picked one up. On it was written, sometimes people stay distant, even when they're near, because time doesn't let them understand each other. Haram held the page tightly, a strange ache rising in her chest. Maybe this was the first time she had truly felt someone's absence. Just then, a voice came from behind. You can keep that page. Maybe it already belongs to you. She turned. Daniyal was standing there. The breeze played with his hair, and his eyes held that same calm, but now, with a touch of warmth. Where were you for 2 days? Just visited the old city. Some memories don't fade easily, Haram said softly. Sometimes memories aren't meant to be erased, just understood. Daniyal looked at her. There's poetry in your words too. Maybe that's your influence, she smiled. They both laughed gently, knowingly. But inside their hearts, a story was beginning to bloom. A story not written with words, but with feeling. As evening fell, they walked side by side along the shore. Haram bent down and wrote in the sand, the story of life is still unfinished. Daniyal smiled. And maybe so are we. The air was heavy with moisture. That night, the sea looked deeper than ever, endless and dark. Daniyal and Haram sat quietly by the shore, a silence flowing between them, the kind that speaks louder than words. You seem sad today. Haram's voice was soft, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. Daniyal exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the water. Some things can't be said out loud, he murmured. You just feel them. Then say them anyway, she said gently. Maybe speaking will make them lighter. He lowered his gaze. My mother passed away 3 years ago. Since then, I've never been able to stay away from the sea. She used to tell me, the sea never gets angry. It just goes quiet. Haram smiled faintly. So you went quiet too. He gave a small, broken smile. Yeah, maybe I became like the sea. A few moments passed in silence. The wind carried the scent of the waves, wrapping them in a strange calm. Haram slipped off her sandals, sat on the sand, and began writing something with her finger. What are you writing? Daniyal asked. A prayer. For whom? For someone who thinks they're alone. He looked at her for a long moment before saying softly, maybe that prayer is mine. Something inside Haram trembled, like the sea breeze had awakened a feeling she hadn't known before. The next morning, the university felt different. For the first time, Daniyal sat beside Haram in class. He looked calmer, as if the waves of the night had washed away something heavy. During the lecture, Haram quietly scribbled in the corner of her notebook. Some people are like the sea. The quieter they are, the deeper they go. When the class ended, Daniyal closed his book and said, Do you ever think some meetings are written by fate? Maybe, she replied. But fate only brings people together. It's up to us whether to stay or not. He looked at her curiously. And what would you do if fate brought someone back to you? Haram laughed softly. First, I'd see if that person is strong enough to stay. They both laughed. But between their laughter, their hearts had begun to beat a little faster. Like two waves meeting quietly in the tide. That evening, when Haram came home, her brothers were being their usual loud selves. Saad was strumming his guitar in the living room. Rayhan was cooking in the kitchen. And Haram stood by the door, smiling at the chaos. Rayhan called out, You're home? Dinner's ready, your favorite cream pasta. Wow, what's the occasion? She teased. Nothing special, Rayhan shrugged. Just felt like making it. Haram thought for a moment. Some people show love through noise, and others through silence. During dinner, Saad grinned mischievously. So, how's our friend Daniyal doing? Haram froze. What do you mean? Rayhan smirked. Saad saw you with him outside the university yesterday. Saad added quickly. He looked very serious when he was talking to you. He was just discussing a class project. Haram said, pretending to be annoyed. Yeah, that's what they all say. Saad laughed loudly. Rayhan changed the subject. But Haram's thoughts drifted back to the seashore, to the sand, and the prayer she had written there. For someone's peace. That night her phone buzzed. A message from Daniyal. Sometimes I feel like you came into my life as a prayer. Thank you for last night. Haram didn't reply. She simply smiled and looked up at the full moon glowing in the quiet sky. A soft breeze passed by, and in her heart, the words written on the sand echoed again. The story of life is still unfinished. In that moment she realized, prayers aren't always whispered to the heavens. Sometimes, they take shape in the form of a person and walk right beside you. Subscribe to watch episode 2. Enjoy every moment with Ayshi Tales.